Good afternoon. Today we're going to be talking about assumptions, and I think that assumptions are a very deadly thing that come between a lot of good relationships, and they even kill the possibility of good relationships or any relationship at all. But I believe the Bible even addresses them. Um, in a lot more ways than what we realize, or a lot more places than we realize. But I'll get into that a little bit here in a minute. Gonna start in Genesis chapter 11, verses 1 through 9. And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said one to another, Go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said, Go to, let us build a city and a tower whose top may reach unto heaven. And let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men builded. And the Lord said, Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language. And this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from there upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth. And from there did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. Now, confound is, in the most simple definition, is frustrate. And it's like, it's frustrating when people don't understand you, when people when people think that your intent is different than what it actually is. And so when the Bible talks about how he confounded the language, I don't believe it was just languages like English, Spanish, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, and so on. I believe it's how men and women communicate, how you, when people try to understand your motive and they guess wrong or right. It's like that and more, because God is so much deeper than what any of us human beings will ever understand. But yeah, the but the thing is on that is, it talks about in the Old Testament that during this time that the thoughts and intents of men's heart were evil continually. And as it pertains to now, if a person assumes the worst in you, you're not going to convince them otherwise. No matter what you do to try to please them and prove that your intent was different, when you can no longer prove it, it just proves their point in their mind. Just like if a person believes good in you, it takes a while for them to believe your intent is evil. Well, probably it takes less time for a person to believe your intent is evil than what it does for a person that believes your intent is evil to believe your intent is good. Um, and let's see. And I think a lot of that is due to if you're trying to build a relationship with someone and you have insecurities, which we all have, Satan could very easily place thoughts in your head of, yeah, well, what about this? If you don't check those thoughts immediately, they can take root in your mind, and your what started out trying to believe the best in a person could easily become believing the worst. Um, there's an adage we've all heard, and it's one that so many say but so few practice. It's ask, don't assume. And Jesus even has us do this. Like when we don't know something about him, he tells us to come to me. He says, "Come to me, all ye who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Well, it's even he even says, "Come to me," as it pertains to things that we don't know. He says, "If any man lacks wisdom, let him ask." And so, yeah, approaching somebody about something we don't know about them is always difficult, but very rarely does we do they give as bad of a reaction as we think they are. We're afraid that they're going to be mean to us with asking something, which usually they're not. Usually people are pretty approachable. If you ask a question to them, they'll typically give you an honest answer. It's when a person assumes, hey, this is what your intent was. That's usually when people get angry. When you try to tell another person, hey, your intent was blah 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 blah, and they know their intent was not that, they're like, why do you assume that this is my intent? Why didn't you just go ahead and ask? And because God's number one command was love God and love others is He wants us to build relationships. Um, and there were a couple areas in Genesis where God God approached Abraham about why Sarah was laughing when he told them that they'd be a father of many nations, when he told them that they were going to be the father of of Isaac, which later became which was the father of Jacob and Esau, who Jacob became Israel. And Sarah laughed and said, "Yeah, right." And then God asked, "Why did Sarah laugh?" And Sarah's like, "I didn't laugh." God's like, "Oh, but you did." And then in Genesis 18, 11 to 15, and 23 to 33, Genesis 18, 11 to 15 was the one where he talked about Sarah did laugh. And then God talks Abraham. I'll go ahead and go there, because I find it fascinating, because the fact that it was a bargaining with God. It was hey, Because God's like, because we have bosses that are like that. It says, oh, if we don't have this, then we will, then this. Well, yeah, but what if this? So here we go. Just a second. Okay, it's Genesis 18:23. It says, and Abraham drew near and said, will you also destroy the righteous with the wicked? Perhaps there be 50 righteous within the city. Will you also destroy and not spare the place for 50 righteous that are there? That be far from you to do after this manner, to slay the righteous with the wicked, and that the righteous should be as the wicked. That be far from you. Shall not the judge of all the earth do right? And the Lord said, if I find in Sodom 50 righteous within the city, then I will spare the place for their sakes. And Abraham answered and said, behold, now I have taken upon me to speak unto the Lord, which are but dust and ashes. Perhaps there shall be lack 5 of the 50 righteous. Will you destroy the city for 45? And he says, if I find there 45, I will not destroy it. And he spoke unto him yet again and said, perhaps there shall be 40 found there. And God says, I will not just destroy it for 40. And he said unto him, oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak. Perhaps there will be 30 found there. And he says, I will not do it if I find 30. And he said, behold, now I have taken upon me to speak unto the Lord. Perhaps there shall be 20 found there. And he said, I will not destroy it for 20. And he said, oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak yet but this once. Perhaps 10 shall be found there. And he says, I will not destroy it for 10. And the Lord went his way as soon as he had left communing with Abraham, and Abraham returned unto his place. So Abraham probably assumed that God was an unjust God, was saying, oh, destroying this area, even though God had his reasons. And he was able to talk God down from 50 to 10. Well, and God had it in his heart, no, if I find even these like 10 good people, I would not destroy this nation. And there was only 8, which were Shem, Ham, Japheth, Abraham and his wife, and Shem, Ham, and Japheth's wives. So that's 8. So so God, and in the story too, God had them leave because as long as good are in the way of evil, God won't destroy the good with the evil. And and so it's he's a just God. He gives us every opportunity to get out of the way. Because a lot of times we will hinder God from doing his work by staying there, whether the reasoning is good or bad. God, and that's so really, he wants us to come to him. He wants us to don't be afraid to ask him. Don't no matter how difficult it may seem to us. And we're the same way. If you have questions about a person's character or reasonings behind what they do, don't be afraid to ask, because you'll find out that that it's a little bit easier to approach them than what you initially thought. But so just keep that in mind as you go forward this week. Don't be afraid of talking to people if something's on your mind, because it's always better to ask instead of assuming. But that is it from here. God bless. Have a great week. Follow if you want. Leave a comment. Whatever, or if you have something you feel like I could have done better, leave that too. And you be blessed.